I wrote the book in 1966, and the film was made in '73. And here we are 30 years later, and I think it's every bit as powerful, if not more so, than it was when I first did it.
I'm gonna name my last album "The Spook that Sat by the Door." You know what I mean? When I finished my situation with our partnership at Atlantic, and for anybody that ain't seen that book, seen that movie or read the book, it's about a gang member from Chicago who presented himself in a way he never caught no cases. He had a clean cut look, and he infiltrated the CIA.
Yep.
And he became educated and basically he used their agenda, which was to have a token nigga in the CIA for political reasons. You know, we gonna speak blunt, fuck it. He used it against him. And I think that in terms of hip hop, you think of the message that they embrace, I feel parallel with, like, you know what I mean, the power structure. I don't mean the culture of hip hop, but the power structure of music. They got prescribed personas they expect from us. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the way he used their intention against him was one of my underlying strategies.
I wouldn't give a damn if nobody white ever read my book. If they do, I want them to pay for it and get my royalties. And if they get something out of it, I say, fine. But my audience is not white. I don't write for black bourgeois intellectuals. I write for the people on the block where I live.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
The Spook Who Sat by the Door. The controversial best-selling novel now becomes a shocking screen reality. The story of the first black agent in the CIA.
Whoever they select will be the best-known spy since 007.
Their first mistake was letting him in.
And let me congratulate you on being the first Negro officer in the Central Intelligence Agency.
Their worst mistake was letting him out.
You really want to mess with Whitey? I can show you how.
For 5 years, he was their token Negro.
Freeman, you people must serve.
For 5 years, he kept his cool.
Man, you just don't belong. I think you'd be happier with a mop in your hands. Like your mama.
And in return, they taught him how to spy, how to fight, how to kill. For 5 years, he was the spook who sat by the door. And then he turned gangs of ghetto kids into a highly trained guerrilla army.
We live off the land. We match technology with spontaneity and improvisation. Men against machines, brains against computers. Now, if you don't think it can work, you check out Algeria, Kenya, Korea, and Vietnam. Can you dig it?
He turned a summer riot into a revolution.
This is not about hate white folks. It's about loving freedom enough to die or kill for it if necessary.
He turned the American dream into a nightmare. Yesterday, a novel. Today, a movie. The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
And the mayor's office is now air-conditioned, courtesy of the Black Freedom Fighters of Chicago.
I want people to think. And out of thought, concerned action. You don't act first and then think. You think first and then act. That's why we were given brains. That's why we don't act instinctively. And when we do, we're wrong. Whichever way they go, I want them to think about what I've had to say. I'm not trying to recruit anybody. I'm not trying to proselytize. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I want to shake up the mind. I want people to look at that movie and go out of there thinking. And I think I've accomplished that purpose.
All right. You out there, Tank? All right, I'll wait for Tank to get in. I don't know if there's connection issues. Let me say what's up to my brother Andrew Charles in the building. He says ready to keep this going. Turk's crew just pulled off something major and continue to prove themselves under his guidance. I'm interested in seeing how or if Freeman manages to keep his cover. Man, you've been following this mug for real, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
All right, there we go. There we go. What's up, Tank?
What's going on, my peoples? What's going on, my brother Reggie? I'm with you. I'm with you, Andrew. I'm with you. I'm ready to see what happens next. Salute to everybody that's on the stream. Salute to everybody that's over there in the shadows that ain't participating in the chat. I've learned and found out that a lot of y'all is watching, but you ain't commenting on the thing because y'all hitting me up in my text on my phone and y'all letting me know that you're listening and you're enjoying the read. So salute to you too. You know what I mean? Salute to everybody that's watching on the replay. And you know, I really do appreciate y'all supporting something like this. I had the idea to read on a live. I didn't know how that would kind of be because I don't really see it done that much. But I want to do something a little bit different than what I see out here already. Thank you for bearing with me as I make adjustments and learn on the fly how to operate going live from the host position. Thank you to my brother Reggie Owens for taking the time to put me on game and educate me and be there when I ask him questions at any time of the day, any time of the night to help me out here while we're doing this. As far as the story, we are reading The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee. We are over halfway through with the book. It's an enjoyable story. Where we are in the story is Freeman has got out of the CIA after his 5-year stint, took all the knowledge that he had while he was there. He returned in Chicago under the guise of being a director of a social service program that helps gangs in the city of Chicago. And he has used that position to parlay himself into an acquaintance with some old Chicago gang members that he used to be a part of the gang once upon a time. And they are called the King Cobras. And now that he is back in the fold, he has met who was the leaders of the King Cobras at the time. Realized he picked that particular organization because of their organizational skills, how they adhere to hierarchy, and how they, even though they were vicious when they needed to be, they were low key for the most part. And he is now in a position to where he has their ear. They respect him. They see how he moved, and they liked his ideas. And he brought those tactics that he learned in the CIA to them, started to train them up, as we read in the last couple of chapters during the wintertime, while everybody was closed off and they weren't expected to be out there on the streets. They were indoors learning everything they needed to know, whether it was hand-to-hand combat, judo techniques, armory, and the whole nine, and as well as their hierarchy on the way things are going to be moving from here on out. Where we last left off was Freeman set up this grand plan to rob a bank in the white neighborhood so that they can have capital to finance their movement. And then after that worked, they hit up a National Guard armory so that they can have weapons for their movement. So the next time something pops off in the city, they can be ready to defend themselves in an organized manner. And I believe that's where we left off. Once again, my brother Reggie Owens is in the building, my tag team partner, so that we can go ahead and read this book. And we're going to start here at chapter 13. Spring ended abruptly. A hot, moist air mass moved up from the Gulf of Mexico across the plains and into Chicago, smothering the city and turning the night into a furnace. The brick buildings radiating the heat collected from the sun during the day. Life in the ghetto moved outside onto the doorsteps of the houses, into the air-conditioned bars and the cinemas that sold cool air and Doris daydreams. On the south side was Washington Park, and families moved at night into its cold greenness, sleeping on blankets under the stars until the first rays of sun, returning to their stifling rooms to snatch a few more minutes of sleep before meeting the hot, humid day. Beer, watermelon, ice cream, anything cool, but there was nowhere to leave the engulfing heat. The city lay gasping like a big beast, temper shortened, and the ghetto lay like a bomb waiting to explode. Freeman thought that it would begin on the west side, but it began on the south side, not far from his home. A cop killed a 15-year-old boy beneath the L tracks near 15th Street. A group of them had been drinking beer when the cop ordered them on. Someone threw a brick and the police drew his gun. He claimed that the boy advanced with a knife. Others dispute his claim. But for the neighborhood, the dispute became irrelevant. The word of the shooting spread and the streets filled with people. The wails of sirens sounded as riot-trained police sped to the area. Freeman's phone rang. Turk, this is Sugar. Daddy say to tell you it looked like it's going to begin. They got people in the street. Right? Where are you? In the pool room. Stay there until you hear from me. I'll call back in an hour. He called his office and told a girl on night duty to alert his street workers and said that he would call again within the hour. He got into his car and headed for 54th Street. He walked up to a squadron and spoke to a cop he had known in high school. Hi, Bill. How does it look? Hey, Dan. Not too good. Young cop panicked and burned a kid, and people got bugged. You know what happens when you have this kind of heat for this long? Anything will touch them off. We got cops moving around, and now spades and plain clothes, telling them to cool it and go home. It's the kids I'm worried about. If they get started, it could spread. Anything I can do to help? You know some of the kids around here, don't you? Tell me you're pretty tight with the Cobras. Yeah, I know. Well, one of your street workers is there already. It wouldn't hurt if you went in, too. But get the hell out of it, looks bad. We don't need any heroes. You think it might be that bad? I hope not, but I think so. These people wouldn't spend 10 minutes in a picket line, but they fight all night. We've been lucky so far, but you know Chicago, if it really goes, it will make those other riots look like picnics. Okay, Bill, I'll see what I can do. Get the hell out of there if they start raising hell. And check back with me every now and then. Dawson is in charge there. You know him? Right. Take it easy, man. I just hope these brothers take it easy. Rioting won't help things any. The picket lines don't seem to have helped much either. Yeah, and that's a bit of it. Freeman walked down Indiana Avenue. People milled about in the streets. The jitneys had stopped making their runs up and down the streets and were either elsewhere or parked on the side streets. He had noticed signs already in the windows indicating which stores were Negro owned. Plainclothes cops moved through the crowds, softly urging the people to return to their homes. Here and there, men harangued knots of listeners about Whitey and police brutality. The police were particularly nervous about rioting on the South Side because it was not a solid ghetto. There were whites in the big housing development near the hospital on 31st Street, which had placed the slums there as part of urban renewal, and it was separated from the Negroes by only the broadness of South Park Boulevard.
There were whites a short distance away in Hyde Park. Rioting would not be easy to contain and might entail more than just the burning of stores and buildings. Freeman moved through the crowd, listening and trying to gauge their mood. There was a chance that they might cool off and return to their homes. There was also a chance that they might explode in any minute. He spotted Stud Davis and walked towards him. "Hey, Stud, what's happening?" "Nothing shaking, man." They walked out into the street away from the crowd. You been to the pool room?" "Yeah, Daddy. Hips and Pretty Willie there." "Where are the rest?" "Out in the street, like the plane." "You think they'll blow?" "Yeah, I don't even think we'll have to start it. Some of the younger kids are ready to start raising hell. If a cop starts leaning on somebody, it's going to blow. But the fuzz been real cool so far." "You seen my street worker, Perkins?" "Yeah, he was around here a few minutes ago. I think he's in the next block. I think he's kind of scared." "Yeah, well, so am I. Cool it." He walked down the block, feeling the tension in the air, the look of expectancy everywhere, and the faces of the people, the children, the cops. The cops were seasoned veterans, no rookies, and they would not act hastily. They had kept the white cops on the perimeter. Freeman turned west and then south and walked back to 51st Street. The cops had ordered the bars and liquor stores closed. The whites who owned businesses had faded into the night, and the only white faces on the streets were those of police. Freeman was told to move on several times by nervous cops and had to show his identification twice as he strolled down the street towards the east, watching the police in riot helmets and the angry faces of the crowd. Everyone waited for something to happen. Television's crews moved here and were there with handheld cameras and cameras mounted on the roof of their equipment trucks. Their bright lights giving a harsh glare and casting grotesque shadows. The blue lights on top of the squad cars revolve and wink every few yards. Gas masks were distributed and boxes of tear gas canisters open. Ambulances and paddy wagons stood at the ready. Cops spoke busily into their car radios and handy talkies. Everywhere they clutched their nightsticks tightly like magic wands, which would give them strength, beauty, and power. The smells were still there. Barbecue, fried chicken, fried shrimp, greens, beans, and cornbread. But the sounds of the ghetto were not there. The jukebox is silent, and no soul music from inside the bars and restaurants. Barbecue joints are from the loudspeakers hung outside the record store. None of the laughter, shouts to friends, the teasing arguments are quick, staccato burst of anger, profanity, no whistling, humming, or someone singing to themselves. The clatter of the L was present as it moved south towards Inglewood or Jackson Park Station, or north to Howard Street. But otherwise, there were alien sounds, the cracks of the police radio, and handy talkies, the cymbal voices over bullhorns, the sullen murmurs of the milling crowd, and the keening songs of hate by the street speakers. The air hung hot and heavy, and there was no hint of a sudden rain to break the heat wave. Freeman turned north on Indiana Avenue for a second time that night and approached Perkins, his street worker, who was talking to Detective Sergeant Pete Davison. Hey, Davison, Perk, how do things look? Not good, said Dawson. It could blow any minute, or maybe not. We hope we can keep it sealed off if it does go. We're keeping the white cops out of here for now. The cat that wasted the kid was O'Fay. He didn't have any choice. The kid came at him with a knife. It was self-defense. He sounded as if he were trying to convince himself more than Freeman and Perkins. They all knew that the cop had emptied his gun, and had missed only once. Standard procedure was to try and drop an assailant with a shot in the high thigh or leg. Dawson shook his head. The cop shouldn't have gone into the dark alley alone. He knew down here he's used to having people respect the uniform. We keep them moving, but as soon as we break up one group, another forms in the next block. The heat is a bitch. Maybe they'll run out of energy and go home. They looked at one another. They all knew it was hotter in those buildings than in the streets. Anything we can do, Dawson, to help? Oh, is it still? It's on you, Tank?
No, you got one more.
Okay. Just what you've been doing. Tell the kids to cool it. They'll listen to you and Perk. I don't think there will be any head whippings. The cops here have orders, and they're all pretty cool. Tough, but cool. And the people here know how far they can push them. Freeman turned to Perkins. How does it look to you, Perk? Kid's nervous. Yeah, everybody but the Cobras. They seem to take the whole thing as some kind of joke. They're sitting around in small groups cooling it. Stud Davis is on the block. The other leaders seem to be shooting pool. They're on junk, said Dawson. Junkies don't care about this kind of thing. What about the others, Perk? Well, the Bearcats are out in force, but I don't think they'll start anything, although they might join in if something starts. But the Apaches might start trouble. They like to take over from the Cobras. And I've seen a few Comanches around. Not many, though, since they sealed off the area. Okay, Perk. First, get down to the drugstore and phone the office. Get the rest of the street workers down here. Then keep moving around. Keep in close touch with the Apaches, with their leaders. Tell them to cool it. I'll be around. He turned to Davison. Take it easy, baby. Yeah, man, nothing else to do. He walked off down the street. Freeman moved among them, talking to them, listening sympathetically to their angry protests. He soothed them and told them to go home. That rioting would do no one any good, but he did not shuck. You either work at a cover or forget it. And he did not feel that he would have to do anything to start the thing. He knew if not tonight, there will be some other night like this one.
Whitey was stupid and stubborn about Negroes. He would not believe that Negroes would not continue to passively accept the pushing around that whites had come to think of as their birthright. The white cops of 51st Street, he knew, felt that they all that my bad, let me start over. The cops on 51st Street, he knew, felt that all they had to do was to charge the people here, make enough arrests of their ringleaders, bloody enough heads, a bit of tear gas, guns fired overhead, and if need be, shoot a few niggas, and they would tuck their tails between their legs and become silent and invisible once more. They would not believe that the things had changed and that these people had had enough. They listened to Freeman because they trusted him. Although they did not agree with what he was saying that night because they were too angry and frustrated. They remember now the waiting in vain for jobs that never materialized, the long humiliating lines to sign the papers thrust at them by arrogant clerks at the unemployment compensation office, the slights and insults of the social workers, the welfare raids on their women's rooms in the middle of the night in an effort to catch a man there. The streets seemed hotter, dirtier, uglier, smellier than they had ever been, and no one seemed to care. But tonight, they cared. Tonight, these people were not invisible. Tonight, Whitey knew they existed, and there were among them those who wanted Whitey to remember this night for years to come. A bit after midnight, they began to cool down. Some to drift to their small, hot rooms for a beer and a late night show on TV. The Negro cops in their midst, sensed the change with relief. And then it happened. It was the dogs. The truck with the 4 dogs and their handlers was to have been parked outside the area to be used only on orders from the commander of the riot task force. But someone made a mistake and the truck stopped at the intersection of 51st and Indiana Avenue. The commander had left his command post there to check the roadblock at South Park. One of the dog handlers approached a captain of police. "Hello, Captain. We just brought the dogs down. You want us to go in?" "Well, the commandant and the second in command aren't here right now. I don't know. How are things so far?" "Well, they got the color cops in here, being in for a few hours. Been kind of tense, but nothing big so far. They're trying to use persuasion." His mouth twisted at the word. "Things have sure changed since I joined the force. All this scientific crap," the new commissioner put in. "Hell, we can't fart if a computer don't say so." Seeing 3 squads of big Irish cops in there, a little tear gas, and we can all go home and have a beer. Maybe they can use us in there, Captain. These dogs will move them. Never seen it to fail. Yeah, One thing a nigga's scared of, it's a dog. Go ahead in, but you better report to Dawson. He's a shine detective lieutenant. Thinks he's held on wheels because he's got some college. You don't report to him, he'll be complaining to the chief. I'm special duty, attached to headquarters downtown. I don't have to worry about no jig lieutenants. He walked away to the van, a big man who carried his vest belly well, like a pro tackle in his last years, using his bulk and experience to add a few more seasons toward his pension. He motioned to the others, and they opened the van carefully. First, talking to the dogs to calm them, and then, in fierce command voices, ordering them one by one to the pavement to attach the leashes and remove the muzzles. There were three dark Alsatians and Doberman. The other cops watched them with interest. The Negro police with flat expressions that said nothing. The big cop in charge of the detail checked to see that they were ready and adjusted his riot helmet, then drew his club. They advanced across the intersection, 4 abreast and north into Indiana Avenue. It was very quiet now. The eyes of the cops on the dogs and the noise of an L going south from the station and a short distance away echoed loudly through the streets. They moved down the street, the short distance in which the shops curled briefly around the corner before stopping abruptly where the residential section of the block began. The people on the porches and steps of the buildings saw them first. The others in the streets turned at their shouts. They're bringing dogs in. Dogs. They're bringing dogs in. The cry was picked up and traveled quickly down the block. The cops continued to advance slowly, 4 abreast, the dogs straining on their leashes. Oh, Faye, cops with the dogs. What the hell they think this is, Alabama? When they gonna get it to the cattle prods and bull whips? Some of the people on the steps of the buildings flanking the streets disappeared into the hallway, making their way to the garbage cans on the back porches, searching them for bottles, going into the backyards and alleys to look for bricks. The people in the street moved back slowly before the advancing 4. Get them motherfuckers. This ain't Birmingham. No damn dogs here. Get them. The first bottle came from a porch, then another from a window on the second floor of a building. They shattered close to the 4 cops and their straining, snarling dogs. At a signal from the big cop, they advanced a few yards at a run, scattering the people in the street before them. All right, get back. You people, break it up. Go on home now, move it. A volley of bricks and bottles answered him. One young black boy stood silently on the sidewalk, not moving. The cop opposite him moved toward him, and the Doberman started tearing at his pant leg. The cop ordered the dog off, and the boy moved away, but slowly, a look of contempt on his face as he looked the cop in the eye. He had never taken his eye off the face of the policeman, even as the dog lunged at him. He moved away now, watching the cop with that look, his right pants leg in tatters. The people moved back into the street as the 4 moved past, and they were surrounded now, with the space between them and the black, angry faces that retreated before them, the black faces that followed to their rear. It was not according to the book. There should be cops to their rear to ensure that the cleared streets remained so. But they were in now, and the big cop was stubborn and unafraid. He moved on, holding the big dog easily, his club at the ready, ignoring the missiles thrown at him.
If they moved within the prescribed distance, he would order the dog to attack. He moved ahead, staring at them steadily from beneath his visor of his ride helmet, ignoring the shouts, insults, bricks, and bottles. Suddenly, someone thrust himself through the crowd, and he had to order the dog to relax as he recognized the shield of a sergeant of detectives. "What the hell are you doing here with those damn dogs?" shouted Dawson. "I'm doing my job, that's what," the big cop retorted hotly. "I'm trying to help you. Whose side you on anyway? Get those dogs out of here right now. Don't you know what the dogs mean to these people? The captain told me to bring them in." He responded stubbornly. "Well, I'm telling you to get them out. I'm in charge here. Where the hell is the chief?" He said, "No dogs." "I don't know where the chief is, and I got my orders." Dawson drew his pistol from his belt holder. If you don't move them, says if you don't move them, you're going to have some dead dogs on your hands. He moved back and aimed at the animals. 4 other Negro detectives had appeared. They drew their weapons too also. The big cop looked at him with hate. "Okay, we're going, but you'll hear from headquarters about this." Pulling the gun on a brother officer, Dawson looked at him and said softly, "You're not my brother, buddy." He turned to the crowd as the uniformed police turned about and headed south towards 51st Street with their dogs. "It's okay now. The dogs are leaving. They're going back. Cooling now. Going home." But it was too late, and Dawson sensed it. The bottles continued to fly, the voices loud in rage. They brought the dogs in just like in Birmingham. It'll be the fire hoses and the cattle prods next. They don't give a shit. It's the same damn thing anywhere if you black. One of the dogs bit a child, a 3-year-old girl. She's bleeding, something awful. They got her in the ambulance and won't let her mother near her. The bastards. The word spread quickly about the dogs, and hundreds of people converged on the street between 51st and 50th. Dawson and his men moved among them, the crowd jousting some, and occasionally they had to strike back. Reluctantly, Dawson fired a red flare, the signal to the rendezvous prior to pulling out. He had his men move the crowd back by force, creating a circle 20 feet in diameter. "Dan, we're moving back as soon as all of my men are here." We'll probably have to move the uniform cops in now. I don't know if we can snuff it out, but we'll have to charge them. Talking's no good anymore. The dogs finished that. I can't leave without Perkins, Dawes. It's all right. You're not responsible. I think it will be okay for another few minutes as long as they don't mistake me for a cop. He saw Perkins move quickly into the circle, his face drawn and worried. "Shit, Dan. We're going." Says, "Shit, Dan. They were going home. They were going home. It was going to be fine until they brought them dogs in. It was going to be just fine." He fought back tears, his face full of exhaustion. They formed a diamond pattern and forced their way back down the block, striking out when they had to, taking no joy in it. They would have to crack a lot of heads tonight, they knew it. And except for the sadists and the power hungry among them, they took no pride in attacking their own people. Finally, they made it to the barricades on the corner and moved through them. The jeering crowd stopped a short distance away, filling the streets. The detectives slumped against police cars and vans. Some sat on curbs, perspiration dripping from their faces, drenching their clothes. The police steered nervously, fingering their weapons, their boredom gone. Dawson strode to his car and yanked the microphone from the dash. Baker 4 to Baker 1. Baker 4 to Baker 1. Come in, Baker 1. Over. This is Baker 1. Baker 4. This is Baker 1. Baker 4. I read you. Over. Better get back here, Chief. Looks like it's gonna be bad. Over. What happened? I thought things were quieting down. Over. They were. It was almost finished. Then they brought the dogs in. You know what they think about the dogs. Over. He looked very tired. Someone handed him a cup of coffee and a paper cup. There was a pause, and then the radio's hum. Okay, Pete, hold on. I'll be right there. You at the CP? Over. Yeah, Chief. You better hurry. Over. Right. We're on the way now. Out. Dawson could hear the screams of the sirens approaching from the east. He looked up at the man who had handed him the coffee. Well, Dan, we did what we could.
Yeah, Dawes. Dawson looked over the barricades at the angry mob. He knew many of them. He had lived for years within blocks of here. He knew their anger and their pain, but there was nothing he could do. He was a cop. He would have a very busy night. You know, Dan, they were going home. Another hour, and you could have been in the Boulevard Lounge tasting, and those people at home. Now look at it. This could be the worst yet. I never seen them like that before. Why did they bring the dogs in? Why, man? Don't they know how they feel about dogs? How come they so stupid? Everything was cool and they had to mess it up. Why do they always mess it up? I don't know, Dawes, but they always do. Chapter 14. The chief's car screeched into the intersection. Dawson walked slowly to the car and stood talking intently to the chief. He turned and waved Freeman to the command post. Chief, this is Dan Freeman. Oh, yes. You're with the foundation, aren't you? Been doing a fine job, I hear. Taking a lot of pressure off our precincts down here. They've been trying the same program, but without much success over on the west side. Pete tells me you were in there talking to the teenage gangs. How does it look to you? When it starts, they'll be the most dangerous and the most destructive. They haven't been rumbling, and so they have a lot of latent hostility to get rid of. Now they have a chance to head out and become neighborhood heroes as well. Usually the folks here are afraid of the gangs and hate them, but it might be different after tonight. I don't think the Cobras will be very active, although some of them will probably attach themselves to the other gangs. Hold on. I thought the Cobras were the worst gang in the city. The chief nodded at Dawson. They were, Chief. Dawson shook his head and said one word. Junk. The chief nodded. I think most of the trouble will come from the Apaches. They want to take over the reputation of the Cobras around here. There are a couple of smaller groups, gangs who will join in, and there are some of the Comanches, and they're from the near west side, from the low-cost housing project on the other side of the Dan Ryan Expressway. The Apaches will do the most damage, though. They won't be afraid of anything that moves, and getting shot, beaten, or arrested, they consider a badge of honor. They're going to be hard to control. And some of the older men who have been out of work for a long time will probably join in. There are guns in there too. Your men will have to watch out for snipers from the rooftops when they go in. I have my street workers on around the clock on around the clock alert. When you think we can help, Dawson knows how to reach me. But they're not likely to listen to any of us now, not since the dogs. The chief winced. Thanks, Mr. Freeman. Can one of my men drop you off anywhere? No, thanks. My car is not far from here. Good luck. See you later, Doss. Yeah, Freebie. Easy. Freeman drove his car away and parked it in Washington Park, then walked back to watch. It wouldn't be long before they went for the stores on 51st, and they would probably infiltrate the lines through the alleyways when the police moved into the neighborhood.
But they had already started on 47th Street. The word about the dogs had spread quickly throughout the cordon off quadrangle, and they had burst into 47th Street before the cops there, relaxing because of the reports that things were quieting down, knew that the mood had changed. They moved close to the street through the darkened alleys, then burst out of alleys in several places. Some were caught and arrested, others beating, but more and more poured into the streets. They went from the pawn shops first, smashing the windows and grabbing whatever they could from the inside until cops approached, and then scrambled further down the street. By now, there were hundreds in the streets, rampaging, smashing, and finally burning and south of 47th Street when the cops were ordered inside the quadrangle. They burst into 51st as well. They went to the blood sucking stores as steel filings steel filings to a magnet. The pawn shops that contain their few prized possessions, pawned for a fix, a bottle, money to hit a number, to impress a girlfriend, for a wedding, medicine, and abortion. They hit the furniture stores that made more money and interest by reselling the same set of jerry-built furniture to people who could not keep up with the payments than if they had sold the junk outright. They hit the supermarkets and liquor stores, and then any store that was owned by whites. They would break in the windows and scramble inside, break the locks on the rear door, and begin to haul stuff out through the back. When the cops arrived, they would leave and move on to the next place being looted. Freeman watched them on 51st, strolling down the raging street. Once a cop swung at him with the club, he dodged the first blow and flashed his badge and ID, but thought that he might have to defend himself. The white cops were lashing out at anything black in terror and hate. A small boy struggled down the street with a small Japanese portable television set. A man went by with a stack of 6 hats on his head, several ties draped around his neck, and a case of bonded bourbon in his arms. A large fat woman waddled down the street with 2 large hams in each arm. Too slow, she was intercepted and clubbed down by a cop. 3 boys in their teens fought savagely with 2 cops. One of the cops went to his knees, and when he reached for his gun, the 3 disappeared through a broken store window and out into the alley to its rear. The cops grabbed, clubbed, handcuffed, and arrested. The police vans moved out, full of men, women, and children, many of them bloody. Firemen tried to uncoil. Firemen tried to uncoil a hose to put out a fire in a furniture store, and were driven away by a group of teenagers. Everywhere there were angry shouts. Burn, baby, burn. Get Whitey, Black Power. A cop was hit in the face with a brick and helped to an ambulance by 2 others, blood screaming freely onto his dark blue uniform. A boy running slipped on broken glass, and 4 cops were upon him, beating and poking savagely at his groin with their nightsticks. He screamed and thrashed in pain, and they dragged him, bloody and still screaming, to a paddy wagon. Smoke licked up towards the heavy, humid skies. The police shouted, men, women, and children shouted and screamed in anger, hate, and pain. One large boy of about 19 fought a cop, knocked him to the ground with a swinging right hand. Then taking his club, beat him while on the ground, then dashing away. He was shot only 2 steps from the sanctuary of the dark alley. He lay on the sidewalk, moving feebly, while the cops carried his victim to an ambulance. A police car was overturned and set afire. Others had their tires slashed. The army of occupation was being attacked everywhere, and since better equipped, having the better of it, but the police took their casualties from bricks, bottles, baseball, bats, and fists. Sporadic firing broke out inside, and Freeman saw 2 cops brought back to the streets, wounded from sniper fire. The violence spread to 55th, to the south, 43rd, to the north, a section of Halstead Street on the west side. Everywhere, the pattern was the same: break, loot, burn, and run. Hurt the cops if you could, run if you couldn't. Take anything of value, stash it at home, and then move back into the streets for more. Smash any stores owned by Whitey. Take your bread to the he takes your bread to the suburbs where you can live. He cheats you, overcharges you, insults you, and and your women. He hates and despises you. Hit him where it hurts most, in his pockets. Stores were stripped, then set ablaze. Everywhere people move, laden with loot. The cops, both white and black, exhausted, frustrated, no longer feared, are in control, struck out whenever they corner someone. Ghetto cops operate in a state of near paranoia, and they had been pushed over the line.
Their protection, their status, their power is based on fear, and now these people no longer feared them, and the status quo had to be resumed. Gunfire increased. Even people who surrounded, who I'm sorry, even people who surrendered were challenged, were beaten to the ground, and dragged to the ever waiting vans. There were no longer efforts to protect property, only efforts to restore law and order at any cost. The clubs were transferred to left hands, and everywhere Freeman looked, there were cops on the prowl with drawn guns. People lay sprawled in the streets and sidewalks, and cops fired at every fleeting shadow. Freeman moved down to the middle of the street, slowly and smiling, his hands a bit from his sides to show the cops he carried no loot and had no weapons. It was no place now for a black man not in uniform. He thought it would be a hell of a time for him to die, walking innocently down the street, shot by a scared, half hate-filled cop. It would be poetic justice considering what he planned, and he smiled at the thought. He caught the acrid smell of tear gas borne from inside by a brief, weak breeze. Smoke filled the streets. There was broken glass everywhere, overturned cars, empty cartridge cases, discarded loot, an abandoned pair of handcuffs, a pair of nylon stockings lying in a pool of congealing blood. A puppy cowered beneath the car, whimpering. In the broken window of an electrical appliance store stood a color television console, too large to be carted away, sitting there like a fat, rich do-wagger on a garbage heap. The rest of the store was littered and empty of its wares. The big set was turned on, and Freeman could see the rioting filmed live and in living color. It was a bit out of focus, and he walked over and adjusted a dial until it came in sharp and clear. He watched a moment. Cops on the screen fired at an unseen sniper on a rooftop, the deep voice of the narrator sounding as if he were commenting on a high-budget Hollywood film about Normandy invasion. Freeman thought the cops looked more heroic on the television set than there on the streets. He turned and walked away. He was stopped 3 times, and once he talked calmly an inch closer to an hysterical cop who waved a pistol in his face. Before Freeman could disarm him, the cop turned to a wall and sobbed into his folded arms, tightly clutching his pistol and club. Freeman waved to another cop and was almost shot until the cop realized Freeman was not threatening a brother officer. They helped the sobbing policeman into an ambulance, and Freeman walked on toward the park. He walked down the middle of the street, past the television cables, cops, cars, cartridge boxes, trucks, television vans, ambulances, equipment, and debris. He stopped, facing toward the park, a short distance away, listening to the alien sounds. No music, he thought. No good here without the music. He thought of what he would be doing from now on, and of the years during which he had prepared himself. He had known that one day this moment would come. He wished it had not. He breathed deeply, trying to shut out the foreign smells until he gasped one which belonged on the street, and finally he could. He breathed deeply and savored the smell of barbecue. He drove to his apartment and phoned Daddy at the pool room. We still here, like you said, Turk. Been watching things on TV. Don't look good. It looks worse out here in those streets. 3 more days of that, and the people ought to be fed up enough with Whitey to back us. What if they stop before then? That's a chance we have to take. But I don't think they will. Not after tonight. The cops will make sure of that. They're going crazy down there. Tomorrow they'll divide up by 10 to go up with casualty figures for the press. You heard from Stud? Yeah, he called about 15 minutes ago. Man, he having a ball. almost got burned twice and busted half a dozen times, but he's still loose and raising hell. When he calls again, tell him to get out of sight and lay low as soon as things get tight in there. They'll be looking for him when things quiet down. How about the others? There was a pause. They shot Tony, one of the young kids. They took him away in the ambulance. Studs say so. Maybe he ain't dead. They only arrest 2 others. Studs say them young cobras is a bitch, slippery, and mean as hell. Okay, I'll check the hospitals tomorrow morning about Tony. Look, you cats better not be in seen in these streets tonight. Nah, Turk, we gonna stay right here. We got beer and some food and a deck of cards and a TV.
When we get tired, we can sleep on the tables. Okay, baby, I'll call you again in the morning. If anything important happens, call me. And tell Stud not to stay down there too long. He's no good to us dead or in jail. He hung up, and when he had finished soaking in a hot tub, realized that he was ravenously hungry. Well, he was ravenously hungry. He ate a mushroom omelet and almost fell asleep before he had finished eating it. He arose early the next morning and turned on the television set to catch the news while the coffee brewed. The mayor, in a brief statement, said that early reports indicated that agitators and communists were responsible for the rioting. The police commissioner called for a return to law and order and hoped that cooler heads might prevail among the more responsible citizens of the riot-torn area. A prominent University of Chicago professor of sociology stated that the riots indicated an increasing pattern of oh man, you got this word? Sadomasochistic tendencies sadomasochist tendencies as an outgrowth of increased urbanization, and that the rioting was a parallel to the death wish demonstrated by the Jews in Nazi Germany, since the rioters could only face eventual repression. Prominent Negro leaders, none of whom had been in the riot area for years, in spite of the fact that most live within walking distance, deplored the riots and advocated nonviolence as the only means of attaining progress for Negroes. A former vice president said that rioters should be shown no mercy, regardless of color. The governor of Alabama said, "I told you so." The governor of Illinois announced that the National Guard had been alerted. Freeman took the morning news from his doorsteps and read them over his first cup of coffee. A cartoonist pictured a bearded figure in sunglasses with exaggerated Negroid features, clad in t-shirt, blue jeans, and sandals, attacking a figure labeled Civil Rights, clad in the Brooks Brothers suits, necktie, and hat, who looked like a white man, colored dark. The editorial called for a return of nonviolent protest, then suggested that nonviolent protest was responsible for the rioting by fostering disrespect for law and order, and ended by depicting that white backlash would negate the great progress thus far achieved in the civil rights. Freeman's Senator Hemington predicted that the rioting would hurt the civil rights bill presently on the Senate floor. The president said nothing. His press secretary praised the Negroes fighting for their freedom He praised the Negroes fighting for the freedom of the Vietnamese. 3 prominent authors, 2 playwrights, and 4 movie stars resigned from civil rights organizations in protest. A Negro leader requested the installation of sprinklers on fire hydrants, a swimming pool in the West Side ghetto, and the hiring of Negro pilots by Trans World Airlines (TWA). Each of the Negro aldermen had denounced hoodlumism, lawlessness, and violence, and praised the mayor for his achievements for the Negro population of Chicago. Their statements were identical because they had been written in the mayor's office of the public relations. The House of Representatives Un-American Activities Committee announced that they would hold hearings in Chicago to investigate communist agitation among the rioters. The Chicago Tribune requested the National Guard. The Daily News suggested that Negroes prove themselves worthy of full citizenship by becoming model non-citizens first. The Sun-Times requested an increase in federal anti-poverty funds. Time Life flew in a staff of 63, Newsweek a staff of 38, and the Times of London authorized a round-trip ticket by Greyhound bus for its New York stringers to cover the riots. The television networks thought that riots in the North might replace the now absent police dogs, fire hose, cattle prods, and mounted state troopers of the South in entertainment value. They each dispatched top flight task force to cover the rioting in full color. Anatoni announced plans in Rome to do a Technicolor movie concerning the riots. It would involve one man's agony in trying to decide whether to throw a brick at the police, and the entire movie would take place in a kitchenette apartment. Marcello Mastroianni would play the lead in blackface. Mr. Stevens, chairman of the board of the foundation, phoned Freeman and asked that he be present at an emergency meeting of the board at 3:30 that afternoon. Freeman ate a large breakfast and drove to the riot area.
Chapter 15. Freeman parked his car outside the cordoned off riot area and walked through the checkpoint after showing his ID to the cop stationed there. A short distance downtown the street, he found Dawson seated in his patrol car, sipping a cup of coffee, his face drawn with fatigue. Freeman walked over to the car when he waved to him. "Hey, Freebie, what you doing? What you doing in here? Don't look like much work for you for a while." "Hi, Dawes. Come over to check out the scene. Got a board meeting this afternoon, and they'll want to report." "Okay, hop in. I'm just going to cruise the area." Freeman seated himself next to Dawson. "Where's Turner?" he asked. "At a briefing downtown. They couldn't spare both of us. He'll be bringing up to date this afternoon when he gets back." He eased the car into the streets, empty except for official vehicles cruising the neighborhood. The word had spread that the cops had become trigger happy, and the people were in their buildings or sitting silently in groups on the porches. Few ventured casually into the streets. "How long since you had my bad. How long since you had some sleep, Dawes?" "Oh, I've been catnapping now and then. They're talking about bringing in the National Guard. I don't like the idea of seeing military uniforms in here. And the unit they alerted is an all-white outfit too. That won't help things out at all, but they don't trust the colored guard unit, or maybe any of us spade cops either. They've been acting like we started it instead of putting it down. Man, the color cops worked harder than anyone here. Dawson fell silent a moment, gazing through the windshield. The groups of people on the porches followed the cars sullenly with their eyes. The odor of smoke hung heavy in the air, and the police calls from the squad car radio sounded loud because of the unusually quiet streets. You know, Dan, I grew up around here, but I wonder if I really know or understand these people. Well, said Freeman, that badge does put distance between you and the rest. Yeah, replied Dawson. I saw some good friends out in the streets last night. Not just hoodlums like they say on TV, but some very straight cats. Cats with jobs, families, responsibility. In a scene like that, everybody can get involved, Dawes. It was like it was a war and I was part of the enemy. Some I can understand. They were always in trouble. But what were the others thinking? And it wasn't like they hated me. It was like I was in the way of something important that they had to do. What good will it do? It's not enough to say that they had it tough. They didn't have it any tougher than we did. Without respect for the law and order, we might as well be back in the jungle. Dawson parked the car on 51st Street. They stared and at a burned out store, the burn smelled heavy in the rapidly warming late morning air. Shit, Dawson. The ghetto's always been a jungle. You really think you can't treat people like animals and not have them act like animals? You really believe you're just a cop and I'm just a social worker? Man, we keepers of the zoo. You can't cage a whole race of people without asking for trouble. You agree with what they did? Dawson turned to face Freeman, one arm draped on the steering wheel. No, because it won't mean a thing. You watch how the white folks will turn it around. They'll have a flood of people down here running surveys and shit, all designed to find out how to maintain the racial status quo without paying riot dues, how to get the niggas to go back to sleep. Whitey won't get the message because he doesn't want to get it. Things will quiet down and we'll both go back to working for Mr. Charlie, keeping niggas in their place. The police calls them through the radio with the metallic quality, echoing in the quiet streets. The sound of an approaching L grew in the distance. I can't buy that, freebie, said Dawson seriously. Somebody has to do what we're doing, and we're a lot better than most. Don't you think it's better to have a cop who grew up here, who knows the people? The L stopped at the station just down the street. The people aboard pushed close to the windows to gaze raptly at the ravaged street below.
Better for Whitey. It takes a nigga to catch a nigga. The streets have to be safe. Whose streets? Were our streets safe for our women when we were kids? Whitey discovered Negro crime when it spilled out of the ghettos and began threatening him. They don't give a damn what we do to one another. Two big cops in full riot gear carrying 3-foot riot sticks noticed Freeman in the squad car and approached it in case Dawson needed assistance. Dawson waved them away and started the car, moving west towards State Street. We have to clean up our own backyard before we can expect whites to help us. You come on like Time magazine, man. The conditions they forced us into caused the crime. Then they used the crime to justify the conditions. If every Negro worked as hard as you have to get where you are, we wouldn't have a problem. Later for that jazz, Dawes. Run twice as fast to get half as far. Whitey sitting there with his hands on the controls of the treadmill, laughing his ass off. I don't think you really believe that. They had turned into an alley on the backyards. Oh, it says they had turned into an alley and the backyards were crisscrossed with lines of wash. The back porch is crowded with people. One man rose, walked to the railing of his porch, and contemptuously spat at the squad car as it slowly moved down the alley. It's easy working and going to law school, but in a couple of years, I'll have my degree, and I think it's worth the extra effort. He waved towards the crowd, towards the crowded porches. If everyone out there devoted as much energy trying to improve themselves as they did last night burning and looting, they might be where we are. Where we are, where the hell are we? How are we any different than them? We're like, since we're not like them. You think we're different because you got a badge and I got a couple of degrees? We gotta be. You know what whites call people like you and me in private? What? Niggers. Cool. He looked at Freeman with an inquiring smile. Freeman, working to control his anger, forced himself to return the smile. I know you really don't believe that stuff, Dan. You're tired and upset about the scene, just like me. Yeah, I guess you're right, Dawes. It does bug me to see all that work go down the drain. When things quiet down again, I have to start right from scratch. How long you been on the force now? Almost 15 years. I can retire with a full pension after 20. I joined right after I dropped out of school when I got hurt, and it finished me for football. How come you quit school, even though you couldn't play anymore? They figured to continue your ride. Public relations for future recruiting. Yeah, I know, but I just couldn't stay around after having been the big hero. I had two good seasons. Dan, two very good ones. They were letting freshmen compete in the Big Ten at the time. Remember, I made first string as a freshman, and even missing 2 games the next season after I injured my knee. I made all conference as a sophomore. He paused, remembering. You would have been a cinch for All-American if you hadn't missed those 2 games. Even so, you got honorable mention for AP and third string for Look magazine. That's the hang up, Dan. Everything was so groovy. And then nothing. Man, I couldn't stay around. The crippled ex-football star, I stayed long enough to take final exams, so I have the credits for the semester. And then I just came back to Chicago without even saying goodbye to anyone. The school was straight. Though they paid for the operation on the knee, and as soon as it was strong enough to pass the police physical exam, I joined the force, and I've been with them ever since. Freeman asked the next question carefully. Aren't you about due for a promotion? Dawson laughed bitterly. You trying to put me on, Freebie? You know the quote is full up. One spade captain of uniformed police, one lieutenant of detectives. If either one drops dead, I'm in. Otherwise, I'm stuck as a sergeant until one retires. They keep telling me how swinging it is to be a detective sergeant at my age, like they're doing me a favor, and I had the highest score on the exam when I made sergeant. But it's not so bad. I could be doing a lot worse. Freeman thought Dawson was not quite ready yet, but his justified indignation at not having the rank he deserved might be just the wedge he needed to recruit him.
And Freeman thought the things he would see when the guard came down to the neighborhood would not enamor Dawson of white folks. He would bide his time, working on them quietly, plant the seeds, and cultivate them over a period of time. Dawson would be a good man. He could take over if they ever blew my cover, Freeman thought. I'll just have to be patient a little bit longer. One day, white man will force him to make a choice he can't straddle the fence over forever. He looked pretty damn good against those dogs last night. Dogs, why don't we go on down to Mama Soul Food on 47th and eat? I'm starving. Good idea, Freebie. Some pork chops would knock me out. They drove through the checkpoint and on top of 47th. They stopped first for a drink in a dark air-conditioned bar and watched the Cubs playing San Francisco on television set there. They watched long enough to see Willie Mays double in 2 runs and then walked the short distance to the small restaurant, ordered and ate in silence, each comfortable in the old friendship and lost in their own private thoughts. When they finished, Dawson drove Freeman to his car, parked just outside the riot area. Easy, Dan. Don't let those board members string you out. You better hope not, because if they do, I'll join the force and take your job in a couple of years. Dawson laughed as he drove off. You might make a pretty good cop. We make a good team. Freeman smiled and waved. Yeah, he thought, we could make a damn good team, but not working for Mr. Charlie. He drove to his office, not far from the university in the Hyde Park district and on the opposite of Washington Park from the riot area. He entered a paneled reception room, decorated in Danish, modern, and smiled at the pretty colored receptionist. Afternoon, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Stevens wants to see you before the meeting. Everybody shook up today. Thanks, honey. I'll try not to lose my cool. He walked down the hall and past Stevens' office into the toilet. As he washed his hands, he checked his mask in the mirror for slippage. This was not the time to arouse suspicion. The face that returned his stare in the mirror was sincere, serious concern, and just a bit worried that it might lose a 5-figure salary because the natives had been restless last night. His mask was perfect. He dried his hands, adjusted his tie, and walked down the hall to reassure the white folks. The board members were talking nervously in Stevens' outer office. Stevens' secretary motioned Freeman into the inner office when he arrived. Hello, Dan. I'd like a brief report before we convene the meeting. Needless to say, most of the board members are rather agitated about this thing. I understand you were there for most of it. What happened? Same old thing. The heat was getting to the cops and the people over there, and there had been the usual increase in head whippings for the summertime. Then the cop shot a kid up. Then the cop shot a kid, upset a lot of people. They had almost quieted down when they brought dogs in, and that was like touching a match to gasoline. How was it over there? Pretty bad. Looks as if they might have to call it in the National Guard. I don't think the police can handle it now. How about the street gangs? They're in it, but only one, the Apaches, are spearheading anything. No, it's not a hoodlum scene like that, they say. It's not a hoodlum scene like they say. The whole neighborhood is involved. If if not actively, then they supported it. What do they hope to gain, Dan? This kind of thing could make it worse for them instead of better. Stevens played nervously with the small bulldog pipe and stared at Freeman intently. They don't hope to gain anything. They don't have any hope. Not anymore. They've convinced nobody gives a damn about them and their problems. They're fed up with being ignored, pushed around, and taking crap, and now they're kicking back. Revenge? No, not revenge, retaliation. There's a subtle but important difference. For a moment, Stephen's face opened, and disapproval of Freeman showed there briefly, as if Freeman had been personally responsible for the rioting, which now threatened their jobs. Stevens looked down quickly at his desk blotter. The blotter, a pale shade of violet, held in place with hand-worked Florentine leather. When he looked up again, he had a warm, if somewhat tight, white liberal smile on his face. Dan, I've spoken to most of the board members, and they're very upset that the money we've spent to prevent exactly what happened last night has been wasted.
I disagree, Steve. Street gang activity among the rioters was at an absolute minimum, and the Cobras weren't operating at all. The Riot Control Task Force report will substantiate that. Stevens leaned forward eagerly towards the first sign of hope that morning, like a dog who does not really believe the bone being held out and violently will be offered. That's good news. Do you think the foundation can take any credit for that? His white liberal glow increased, and Freeman fanned the embers. Of course, if it hadn't been for the foundation, those kids would have been directly involved, and the damage indefinitely worse. Oh wait, dang, I'm drafting infinitely worse. I hope you can confirm this in the meeting, Dan. Stevens licked his lips nervously, hitched his pocket handkerchief, and patted it. Patted it into place as if to be certain his heart still beat beneath it. There's talk among the board to dissolve the foundation. Burkhardt had been particularly critical. You know what it would mean to have the foundation ended. Jobs like ours don't grow on trees. Freeman allowed a moment of panic to show in his eyes, then looked out of the window as if to contemplate the horrors of job hunting. He thumbed through his mask and chose one of smiling confidence. I picked up a copy of the report of the chief of the riot task force first thing in the morning. He opened the slim attaché case he had placed at his feet and offered the report to Stevens like a tranquilizer. He spoke in clipped, somewhat more white tones than usual. It indicates that street gang activity was a minor factor in the rioting and cites us by name as the major reason for the inactivity of the gangs as units in the rioting. Stephen leafed through the report. Good thinking, Dan. This report could prove invaluable. If we can come through this crisis unscathed, we should be incensed for the Ford grant. And you know, that means substantial raises in pay and allowance for both of us, and nationwide prestige as well. Yes, I think this report, plus your own oral presentation today, could turn the trick. We have to increase our budget, not kill the foundation. Precisely, said Freeman. Stevens decided to fill his pipe. In moments of doubt, his pipe somehow made him feel wiser and more secure. I talked to the chief on the phone this morning, Dan. He had high praise for your activity last night. Perk was there too. He did a damn good job. I like to mention, I like to mention in his personnel file. Of course, Dan. Draft a statement and I'll endorse it. I think we better go into the conference room now. This will be a tough session. I don't know, said Freeman. It's a lot tougher across the park. Stevens opened the meeting and Freeman gave a brief report. Burkhart spoke up. I might as well be frank about this thing. I'm beginning to have serious doubt about the worth of this foundation. We spent a good deal of money to prevent this very kind of thing, and I wonder if we want to pour good money after bad. He wore heavy, heavy horn rimmed glasses too big for his nose, and he pushed them back up with a nervous gesture of his right hand. The streets aren't safe. What's to prevent some of those hoodlums from coming into Hyde Park to continue their burning and looting? I sent my wife and children to their mothers in Winnetka. I've loaded my shotgun, deer rifle, and pistol. Stephen spoke soothingly. We're all concerned about this kind of thing, Burke, but I don't think it is as bad as all that. Dan here reports that street gang activity is at a surprising minimum, and the commandant of the riot task force confirms it. And he has high praise for Dan here and our foundation. Furthermore, the King Cobras, the potentially most dangerous gang in the area, is not functioning in the riots as a unit. And it says, and that is the outfit which had our top priority when Dan was brought in. Well, that is good news. Perhaps the papers have exaggerated a bit, but still, we are less than a mile from the major rioting. What's to prevent it spilling over into our neighborhood? Professor Thompson of the Department of Sociology and Social Welfare at the University of Chicago and a foremost expert on juvenile delinquency spoke well, Burke. We found that people from lower income groups, and particularly the culturally deprived and socially disadvantaged, seldom cross what we term natural urban boundaries, such as the Midway Mall, an expressway, large busy thoroughfares, or Washington Park, for instance. The park acted as a natural buffer, and I think we need fear. Also, says I think we need fear little in that sense.
Fortunately, there are no middle class areas contiguous on the riot area, and there is little chance for the rioters to single out people better off than they are as targets of their discontent and frustration. What you mean, baby? What you mean, baby, is that there are no white middle class areas contiguous on the riot area, thought Freeman. The slum portion of the ghettos ends at 61st. But Freeman didn't think they would attack other Negroes, even the black middle class. I would tend to agree with Steve that our organization has performed well beyond the level to be expected that our activity among the youth of the neighborhood could act as a restraining factor even in this moment of dramatic social disorganization is little short of remarkable. In fact, I intend doing a paper concerning our role amongst the writers for a presentation at the next national convention of the American Society of Sociologists. If Dan would be so kind as to contribute some of his own observations. What you want, Professor, is for me to write the damn thing for you so you can inject some sociological gobbledygook and call it your own. Freeman thought suavely, but his expression never changed. The board meeting continued, and Freeman indicated what was planned. Once things quieted down in the riot area, Stevens adjourned the meeting. They filed out, stopping to shake Freeman's hand, smiling and calm now. No longer afraid because Freeman was a good nigga, their nigga, and he would protect them from others. Even Burkhart, who had always been awkwardly brusque with Freeman, smiled, pumped his hand, patted him on the back, chattered small talk at him, and suggested that they have lunch together one day. That's what they hired me for, thought Freeman. The house slave to keep the dangerous, dumb, nasty field slaves quiet, and now they know that it's only niggas raising hell in their own neighborhood. They feel fine. He watched them from behind, masked, betraying nothing, smiling, saying the right things automatically. Then they were gone, and he was alone in the room with Stevens. Well, Dan, I think that went much better than we had any reason to expect. I'd reminded them all before you arrived that you had predicted trouble of this kind this summer, and I think they were pleased at the report regarding juvenile activity last night during the rioting. I think there was a raise in this thing for you. What about the street workers? Of course, the street workers too. But that would have to wait. That would have to await the grant from Washington. But I'm requesting an immediate increase in your salary at the next official board meeting, and I can see no opposition on the horizon. How about dinner? Freeman couldn't eat with this white man, not after last night. He knew he might lose his cool and blow his cover. I don't think so, Steve. I've got a lot of checking to do before the staff meeting tomorrow afternoon. As soon as things settle down over there, I'm putting the entire staff of street workers into the area, and we'll have to work out a crash program. Good idea, Dan. Next week, then. As he turned to leave the conference room, Freeman silently handed him his forgotten pipe. Freeman drove the few blocks to his apartment, took a steak out of the freezer compartment to thaw, put a potato in the oven to bake, and made a lettuce and tomato salad. He walked into the living room and turned up the air conditioner, then mixed himself a martini. He sat down and sipped the drink slowly, waiting for the steak to thaw, looking at the Javanese Buddha head of black volcanic stone. He had never thought he would enjoy what he would do, and now that time had arrived. He knew that he would not enjoy it at all, but that would not change things. He wondered how many of them would be alive this time next year, and he wondered how many more they would kill tonight. The papers had reported 3 killed, but he had seen 5 dead the night before on 51st Street alone. Target practice with live ammo and live targets. But then the bullseye of every target he'd ever seen had been black. And that concludes chapter 15. Tonight we read chapters 13, 14, and 15 of the Sam Greenlee novel, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. And man, what a 3 chapters was. Man, it got real thick in these 3 chapters, as we saw happen once everything popped off with the riots. We saw things kind of calm down after the young boy got shot. And it's crazy because in the previous 3 chapters, in 10, 11, and 12, which we read last night, he made a comment saying that as so the sun rises on the Sahara Desert, they can be assured that a cop is going do something dirty to a nigga in the community. And sure enough, you know what I'm saying, they shot a boy, you know what I'm saying. They said that he emptied the whole clip out on the boy, the cop did, and he only missed 1 shot. So that means he emptied the whole clip damn near into the boy. And then, you know what I'm saying, that set things off. And even though that happened, the community at first, you know what I'm saying, they kind of held their ground. Like they said, the boy was on the sidewalk, he wouldn't move until they did what? Bring the dogs out to agitate him. That police commander who was like, niggas don't like dogs, so we gonna agitate them. Basically trying to do some old terroristic tactics and try to get ahead of any kind of uprising ahead of time by using psychological warfare, because they feel like, oh, niggas are scared of dogs. So they brought the dogs out, which backfired on them and exacerbated the situation, making it so that things popped off even more. But then as we saw in later on in the chapter, the media got involved and portrayed it like it was a street gang thing, when in fact it was the community that just, you know what I'm saying, they have been sick and tired of what's been going on in the years leading to when the book even started. And then we go into that great dialogue that the officer Dawson and Freeman had, who they had known each other since they was kids or whatnot. Then they separated and went on to their personal lives, but as they come together now as adults, they're having this conversation amongst each other, and you can tell that Dawson, he see what's going on, but he feel like the best way to approach it and deal with it is to be a part of the system and try to, work from within. Like you said, wouldn't you rather have a cop be a cop from the neighborhood than one of these other cops? But then he got to see, as he was having that conversation with Freeman, that the police purposefully started leaving the black cops out of the whole situation, and then they blamed them for it even happening. You know what I'm saying? And then so Freeman, being the intelligent brother that he is, and the astute brother that he is, he's sitting back and realizing, damn, I could probably get Dawson to be on my team. All he need is for, you know what I'm saying, to see a couple more things, i.e. the National Guard get out here and really start to go wild, because as Dawson said, the National Guard be all white. And he figured, shit, we can probably turn him to our team. You know what I'm saying? So let me see. Andrew Charles, he say, okay, first of all, let me see. Salute to my brother T's 1982. What's going on, Johnny? Peace, blessings. King. Andrew Charles say, Freeman has an eye for what an individual's potential is and the ability to connect with them in a way that brings it out of them. He knows his people. And that's exactly where I was going with that. You know what I'm saying? He knows his people. He was listening to Dawson talk, and he kind of he got that feeling. You know what I'm saying? He got that feeling, and he was thinking about that. Andrew Charles say a whole lot to think about. You damn right. It's getting thick right now. And then he says Freeman and Dawson are similar situations. Indeed, that. You know what I mean? Just on opposite sides of the spectrum for now. As we saw later, Dawson even made the claim. He said, man, we make a good team if you join the force. But Freeman ain't joining the force. Like you said, man, we can't get it done working for Mr. Charlie. But you know, this is getting real interesting. And then we saw Freeman is starting to show. I don't know if y'all got the same thing. Reggie, you can chime in. But I it seemed like, I don't know if Freeman started to, if they wanted to illustrate that Freeman started to show a little bit of chinks in his armor right before the board meeting when he was looking himself in the mirror and have to put his game face back on, which he eventually did. But for a moment there, it seemed like, damn, this is all starting to weigh on him, this whole plan, because of the outcome. And like he said, the news is saying 2 or 3 people got killed when he just saw 5 get executed, like they having target practice on niggas out there in the hood. So do you think this is weighing on him at this point in the story, or you just think that just, you know what I'm saying? Well, what are your thoughts, Reggie?
Man, I don't know, man. I was thrown off by when he said he's gonna try to see him get the other detective involved. That's the part I'm waiting for. But everything you spoke of, man, I definitely agree with it. But I want to see where he's gonna go when he brings Dawson into this situation. Is Dawson gonna be on board? And not even looking at it from watching the movie, but the book could be different from this part in the film. I want to see where they go with this.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be interesting to see moving along in the book where they go with how the story unfolds differently from the movie and returns to that dynamic between him and Dawson. You know, once the ish hit the fan and the National Guard get involved, because we all know that usually when you like read a book and you watch it on a live action adaptation, they usually go one way or the other, and you know, change things up for thematic expression, which is different from the book. So even though Sam Greenlee was involved with both, sometimes it looked better to do it a different way on screen than it is in the book. So we're gonna get to that journey as we have, what do we got? Chapter 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. We got 5 chapters left to close it out. You know what I'm saying? It's good, man. Like, let me see. What my brother Andrew Charles say again? He said, the pressure has to be weighing on him despite his strong character. Yeah, I like the way they illustrated in the book how it is starting to show some wear and tear on him, because like he said, he's in it for the freedom. He ain't in it because he like to see people get killed or people get hurt or stuff get stolen, but he knows that there's a method to the madness, right, Reggie? Like there's a reason for all this. You know what I'm saying? He was even,
yeah, it ain't about hatred of whites.
Yeah, he like, hey, don't take this and leave that. Take this, you know what I'm saying? What we can take or what we can use, take that. He was like during the rioting. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, it's about the rights of the people and the freedom of the people for him. But man, I know I think Stormy B, man, he live already in progress, probably and I do got to catch up on some of these fights too tonight. I just want to touch on what we read and start doing like a little synopsis before and after the readings. Try a little something different, even though we're already at the end of the book. Just for the people that's catching us on the replay, we're already about an hour and 50 minutes in. So, you know, we're gonna go ahead and close out here. Andrew Charles say, I don't see him losing sight or wavering of his path. You damn right. Because it's more than just, and that was the thing that he was talking to Pretty Willie earlier in the chapters where he was saying it's got to be more than just about revenge and hurting people. As he told the guys in the board, ain't about revenge. It's about retaliation. You can't just do something without having an equal and opposite reaction to what it is that you do to people. You can't just sit around and, you know what I'm saying, do stuff to people over and over and over again, and expect that people ain't gonna do nothing back to you. So, you know, that's a illogical ideology to have in a real world scenario. I don't care who you are, you know what I'm saying, or what position you are. Eventually, you know what I'm saying, that people or animals or whatever the case you want to, whatever situation you want to use, is gonna be a equal reaction to whatever energy you put out there. You're gonna get that energy back. He said, I've never read the book or seen the movie, so this is new to me. Appreciate you, Tank and Reg. Yes, sir, Charles. That's why we do it. Try to be as clear as we can on the words. Try to give pause for the dramatic effect so we can gather what we've been reading before. Because there are people out here who've never seen the movie, never read the book, and this works as an audio book for people who are at work, people who are going for a midnight run or a late night run, depending on where you are in the country or in the world, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? You might be, working on some stuff on your own, but then, you know what I'm saying, you don't have the book or you don't have time to watch the movie, and you hear with us listening. So with that, I greatly appreciate it. I know my brother Reggie do the same. And, once again, we want to make it cool to read and make reading great again. We're going to say that over and over and over every time we get. Go ahead, Reggie, close us out so we can get out of here on this 2-hour minute mark.
Yes, sir, man. That's all that I got, man. Y'all keep coming through. Tune into these books. Grab you some books. Jump on with us. We're going to keep this thing rolling. But that's all I got, man. Go end up doing that live over there with Stormy as well. But damn, man, you gonna go on tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. We be up in here tomorrow, so don't forget that, folks. Pay attention to the notifications. Hit that bell icon. Get your notifications.
Yes, sir. And with that said,
what time? What time tomorrow,
though? It's up to you. I don't know your schedule. I can go earlier if you want to go earlier, and we can probably get in more than 3 chapters. We got 5 left, and since there's no barbershop, you know what I'm saying, and we can go. I don't know what time the fights end. Let's go. Let's try to go after. If you want to go before or after the fights?
Let's go before the fights because I do that post fight with Stormy as well.
Yep, that's why I'll do that. Yep, okay, for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll set it up. Everybody that's listening right now, even if you want to listen on a replay, please subscribe to the channel so that you get the alert to the time that we're gonna drop the live. And if not, and you can catch it on the replay. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy. But we out of this piece.
Peace.
Subscribe to Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens. Subscribe to Tank Obadiah. And like this video. Like it so it can get out there and everybody know that we're reading books over here on this channel. All right? Peace.
I wrote the book in 1966, and the film was made in 73. And here we are 30 years later, and I think it's every bit as powerful, if not more so, than it was when I first did it.
I'm gonna name my last album "The SPOOK" that sat by the door. You know what I mean? When I finished my situation with our partnership at Atlantic, and for anybody that ain't seen that movie or read the book, it's about a gang member from Chicago who presented himself in a way he never caught no cases. He had a clean cut look, and he infiltrated the CIA.
Yep.
And he became educated and basically he used their agenda, which was to have a token nigga in the CIA for political reasons. We gonna speak blunt, fuck it. He used it against him. And I think that in terms of hip hop, you think of the message that they embrace, I feel parallel with, like, you know what I mean, the power structure. I don't mean the culture of hip hop, but the power structure of music. They got prescribed personas they expect from us. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the way he used their intention against him was one of my underlying strategies.
I wouldn't give a damn if nobody white ever read my book. If they do, I want them to pay for it and get my royalties. And if they get something out of it, I say, fine. But my audience is not white. I don't write for black bourgeois intellectuals. I write for the people on the block where I live.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
The Spook, who sat by the door. The controversial best-selling novel now becomes a shocking screen reality. The story of the first black agent in the CIA.
Whoever they select will be the best-known spy since 007.
Their first mistake was letting him in.
And let me congratulate you on being the first Negro officer in the Central Intelligence Agency.
Their worst mistake was letting him out.
You really want to mess with Whitey? I can show you how.
For 5 years, he was their token Negro.
Freeman, you people must serve.
For 5 years, he kept his cool.
Man, you just don't belong. I think you'd be happier with a mop in your hands.
Like your mama.
And in return, they taught him how to spy, how to fight, how to kill. For 5 years, he was the spook who sat by the door. And then he turned gangs of ghetto kids into a highly trained guerrilla army.
We live off the land. We match technology with spontaneity and improvisation. Men against machines, brains against computers. Now, if you don't think it can work, you check out Algeria, Kenya, Korea, and Iran. Can you dig it?
He turned a summer riot into a revolution.
This is not about hate white folks. It's about loving freedom enough to die or kill for it if necessary.
He turned the American dream into a nightmare. Yesterday, a novel. Today, a movie. The spook who sat by the door.
And the mayor's office is now air-conditioned, courtesy of the Black Freedom Fighters of Chicago.
I want people to think. And out of thought, concerned action. You don't act first and then think. You think first and then act. That's why we were given brains. That's why we don't act instinctively. And when we do, we're wrong. Whichever way they go, I want them to think about what I've had to say. I'm not trying to recruit anybody. I'm not trying to proselytize. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I want to shake up the mind. I want people to look at that movie and go out of there thinking. And I think I've accomplished that purpose.